welcome to the third part of our Unlock Your Potential webinars. My name's Stuart Moore of Plus One Recruitment, and I'm joined as always by my colleague Dan Marlowe. Dan, would you like to introduce yourself and say a few words?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Stuart. Yeah, I'm Dan Marlowe. I'm the recruitment team manager here. Obviously co-hosting the webinar today with Stuart. My role in this is very simple. I'll be looking after the chatbots today. So if you have any questions, please put please put them in there, and then we'll allow a few minutes at the end for any sort of Q&As to happen at that point.
Perfect. Thanks, Dan. Little bit of housekeeping before we start. As Dan said, if you have any questions or comments, just pop them in the chat. Just because this is a condensed 30-minute webinar, we won't have the time during the session to stop and ask questions, but we'll do a Q&A at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and that's because we will then post it on our YouTube channel afterwards. Don't worry, we're very, very good at anonymizing everything, so your names and everything won't be shown. And as I said, we'll have a chance at the end if anyone has any questions. So without further ado, there's a few things we're going to be talking about today, and that is essentially what we do as recruiters and ultimately how we can help you get back into work. So during this session, we'll cover a few different topics, from how you can prepare yourself for the current job market. We appreciate that it is quite tough out there right now. And I'm sure if you're actively job hunting at the moment, you'll be noticing, just how many people are applying to vacancies. And I know it is not always the easiest thing to do just to get responses from employers. So hopefully with a few of the things that we'll be putting into or discussing today, I should say, there might be a couple of little tips that you can take away to help increase the odds in your favor. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're going to be talking about, again, how you can work effectively with recruiters, because it is a sort of a two-way partnership, and how we can help you get your next job. And also from our point of view, what makes you a great candidate? Because ultimately we are people, and people, interact with people in different ways. So how can you help us to help you, if that kind of makes sense? So first of all, a little bit of an idea about what we actually do as recruiters. So as you'll see from the slide, we have two distinct sets of customers. So we have job seekers like yourself, so people that register with us looking for their next career move, and we have our employers. Now, the way it works, for those of you that don't know, is we are paid by employers for helping them to recruit the right people into their vacancies. Okay, so effectively it's a free service for you guys. We charge usually one-off introduction fees to our clients, and then that sort of covers our service. So essentially the employer is the sort of paying customer, but without job seekers or candidates, as you're sometimes referred to, we wouldn't have anything to present to our paying customers. So it's really important that we look after both parties. Ultimately, we're trying to put you guys together, so it has to be a bit of a win-win. But essentially, what we do is we manage the recruitment process. We get vacancies from employers in different ways. So being that we've been around a little while, we've got certain employers that we've worked with for a long time, and they've built up a relationship with us as a supplier, so they trust our judgment. Normally, we do a good job with them, hopefully, so they'll use us again. And the other way we get employers to work with us is by marketing ourselves in our area or specialism. So that could be simply through advertising or cold calling, but also something we do quite regularly is we do spec outs. And that's where we would take somebody's profile, look on our database as to who a potential match might be in terms of a potential employer, and we would send an anonymized version of your CV to that employer to see if they're interested. And if they are, of course, we'll look to set up an interview and a meeting and go from there. So lots of different things that we're doing all of the time to maximize employment opportunities for you. And equally, yeah, trying to sort of grow our business and grow our customer base at the same time. So that's essentially what we're doing all of the time. So what do we do for you guys? So essentially, apart from what I've just mentioned, we provide access to permanent and temporary jobs because companies might just need somebody on a short-term basis. We can give you some knowledge of what's going on in the local market, and that could be a bit of salary information, could be an idea of perhaps even who are the good or bad employers to work for, because of course we hear a lot of stories. We talk to a lot of people about their experience with certain companies, and of course in doing so you do pick up on some trends. And yeah, as it says on the slide, you know, it can help you prepare for interviews, help you put your CVs together, and really kind of hopefully give you that little bit of expertise to you know, give you a bit of an advantage. So as I mentioned just now, we work with employers to help them recruit the right people. Now, what that means is we can't just put you forward for a vacancy because you like the sound of it. Our employers are paying us to make sure that we're only sending them the people who closely fit the criteria of what they're looking for. And we're judged on that. Okay, so if we send somebody's CV and it's outside of what they're looking for, they'll be like, well, why are you sending me that CV? You know, I'm paying for this service. Why are you doing that? So don't be, I suppose where I'm going with this is if we've spoken to you or an agency has spoken to you and they've said, look, you know, yes, potentially you might have transferable skills, but this is what my client's looking for. It's probably because the employer is being very prescriptive in terms of their requirements. Okay, it's not the agent being difficult. Ultimately, we get paid for filling the job. So, you know, as long as we find someone to do that job and both parties are happy, everybody wins. But I understand that sometimes it can be frustrating from a job seeker's point of view if you think you look right for a job, but you're being held at arm's length by the recruiter. The simple thing there, and what I would advise you to do is ask the recruiter what's missing from your CV. Don't assume you've got everything, because there may well be a really good reason why that recruiter isn't jumping all over your CV and knocking down walls to get you an interview with their client. Because believe me, if you ticked every box for that role, they'd probably be doing that. So yeah, and like I mentioned earlier, we provide well, we charge for our services, so that's to the end employer. So into the sort of you know, the depths of this presentation. So really, what can we do to enable you to have a better chance of getting a job in this jobs market? You'll probably be well aware, if you've been keeping an eye on the news, that the number of vacancies in the UK has been on a sort of a gradual decline now for the past 3 years. Okay, now if you look at that headline in isolation, that sounds quite scary. You know, it sounds like a declining job market, economic stagnation, doom and gloom, blah blah blah. Okay. The reality is, yes, it has slowed down. You know, we obviously feel that and notice that as well. However, it has come down from a particular high point in 2021. Okay, so if you think about it, after the pandemic, there was this big sort of pent up market there where employers couldn't employ during the pandemic. So 2020 was a bit of a write-off for most employers. Lots of people were made redundant after being put on furlough because no one knew what was going to happen. And then in sort of early spring 2021, the job market went bananas. And by about 6 months into that year, there was close to 1.4 million job vacancies in the UK, which is the highest ever job numbers on record. Okay, so that that was the peak. And then by around summer 2022 or around the sort of August, September time, that figure started to come down. And it's what it came down to over the last couple of years was a pre-pandemic level. Okay, so we're talking what would have been deemed as fairly normal about 5 or 6 years ago. So that was where we were probably sort of about a year ago. What we have seen over the last year is that shrinking a little bit further. And we think that's down to, firstly, all of the stuff that's going on over the world that's shaking up the economies. So wars, difficult trading periods, good old Donald Trump's tariffs, and all of those things that are affecting global economies. And we're not alone in that. It's having ripple effects all over the world. Okay. Yes, if you're sort of concerned about AI, that is having an effect, probably more on the kind of entry level of the market. Certainly, it's affected the graduate market this year. But again, it's not a big effect at the moment. Okay, if that makes sense. And then the rest of it is just, there's a lot of caution in the market. So businesses are recruiting, but they might only be recruiting for mission critical roles, or they might only be recruiting to replace someone that's left rather than recruiting because of growth. Okay, so that's kind of what's going on. So anyway, back to this. So what can we do to make sure you're job ready? Now, the first thing is the CV. Everybody will give you varied advice on how to present your CV, and we actually have a whole presentation on preparing your CV for the market. So if you've not seen that, check out our YouTube channel. There's a 30-minute webinar all about prepping your CV. We also talk about making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, get one, and we'll come on to that in a moment. Choosing relevant recruitment agencies is quite important. So we are fairly broad brush in terms of the types of roles we recruit for. But having said that, we don't recruit for everything. Okay, so for example, we'll get a lot of calls from people looking for factory work or laboring, or I suppose you'd call it blue collar work. We don't do any of that. Okay, so all of our roles tend to be professional services like accounting, marketing, human resources, those sorts of positions. And if you don't work in those areas, then it's really important to try and get in touch with recruiters that specialize, because believe me, whatever industry or vertical you work in, there is a recruitment company or 12 out there who specialize in what you're doing. So make sure you're speaking to the right people from the get-go. Okay. Now, contact with agencies. We see a lot of stuff on LinkedIn and grumbles from candidates who register with agencies and go, I never heard anything once I registered, and all of that. And look, that's probably true. We onboard certainly in the hundreds of candidates every single month. And it would be amazing if we were able to find jobs for everybody that registered with us. Okay. The reality is, we only actually place a small percentage of the people that register with us. And that's because we might not necessarily have the right jobs at that moment in time that you register. It might be that we're one of 5 agencies that you register with, plus you're applying for jobs yourself directly. So what I would say is that whilst we don't have the physical time to reach out to everybody just for a catch up, if you ever reach out to us, we'll always take your call or reply to your email. And we're more than happy to jump on a Teams or have a quick chat with you if you just want a bit of a catch up and find out what's going on in the market. So, it's a two-way street. It's also important for you to maintain contact with the agencies as well. And also to make sure you're front of mind as well, because we don't know from one day to the next what jobs are going to come in. And whilst we do go onto our database and look for people who are relevant, if we've only spoken to you yesterday, then of course you're right at the top of our minds should something come through. Okay, so something to bear in mind. Okay, but as it says on here, just keep in touch with everybody, keep being proactive, keep applying for jobs, and yeah, you should find something fairly soon. So, like I mentioned, we've got a whole video dedicated to this, but I'm just going to skim through the key points if you haven't seen that yet. So, firstly, what should your CV contain? It should have a profile at the start. So, this is that initial opening paragraph about you. Try to keep it to just one paragraph, maybe 4 or 5 lines of text, and try and make it really unique to you. So try and avoid too many cliche phrases like, you know, I work well by myself or as part of a team. Um, that may be true, but everybody says it. So try and make it a little bit more unique. You know, what are your unique skills? What do people say about you? If you had a particularly good relationship with your last manager, why were they particularly fond of you? What is it you do in a business that makes you stand out in a positive way? So try and include some of that stuff in your profile if you can, as well as be really clear what your specialist skills are and what you're looking for in your next job. Then it's the employment experience. So please make sure this is in chronological order with the most recent at the top. This makes it much easier for recruiters and employers to skim read your CV. Now, on average, most CVs get somewhere around 7 seconds of attention before someone will make a decision as to whether to check you out a little bit more. And that could be have a look at your LinkedIn profile or maybe pick up the phone and have a chat with you. So that first impression is really important. So yeah, make sure your most current stuff's at the top and save your, the job you did in 1995 for the bottom of page 2. And just on that, again, there's a lot of conflicting views on how long a CV should be. Generally speaking, 1 page is not enough. You'll probably find you're not putting enough content on there. 2 to 3 pages is about right. Okay. Don't worry about going on to 3 pages. The most important thing is that you make the CV engaging so that they want to turn over to page 2. If they're not seeing what they want on page 1, doesn't matter how many pages it is. So keep it engaging. Try not to take off too much to just keep it under 2 pages. And do make sure you put a few key achievements on there as well. So again, things that your previous employers were particularly pleased with, or any projects you did that might have saved a company money or made a company money. Remember, in this sort of economy, employers will want to know that you can add value to the business. Okay, so if you can demonstrate where you've added value, then throw it on your CV. It makes a great headline. Then put your education on there. Please, please, please put that on there because again, we see so many CVs where they haven't put education on. I appreciate, for some GCSEs might have been a while ago and you don't need to put all your grades, but just put that you did GCSEs or A levels. Certainly if you did a degree, then put your degree score on. And absolutely, if you've had any sort of post-education qualifications or training, put it on there. Even if it's something like, I don't know, fire marshal training or something like that. It again, it's just another little string to your bow that you can add to your CV. Lastly, I really like this because it adds color to the CV. And we talked earlier about making it personal to you. Pop something on there about you. Okay, it could be hobbies, interests, and don't worry about what it is, right? Because you don't know who you're going to be talking to. I'll give you an example. I registered somebody earlier today. Before I picked up the phone and we had a conversation, I noticed he was into tabletop gaming. So at the end of our meeting, we had a 5-minute conversation about tabletop gaming, which really helped to break the ice. So you just never know. If you think it sounds a bit nerdy or a bit, or you're a bit worried, who cares? It tells something about you. If anything, it makes your CV a bit more interesting, adds a bit more color. So again, pop it on there. And just lastly, please put on your CV where you live. I wouldn't put your full address, but look, just put the town. So I don't know, Banbury, Coventry, Oxford, wherever you're based. Again, it helps the person reading it to judge whether you might be relevant for the location that they're recruiting for. Okay. We get loads of CVs from people without that on. And again, it's a bit of a pain because you have to sort of email them to say, hey, got your CV. Can you let me know where you live? because we want to know that if the job is office based, you're going to be able to realistically get there every day. So again, it just helps the reader. Try not to put barriers up or things that the reader's then got to dig around and find, because that can be a little bit frustrating. So if you do get an interview, okay, off the back of a good CV, what should you be doing? Well, preparing, as you'll probably gather from this slide. That doesn't matter whether you are doing a video interview, which is of course very popular nowadays, certainly for first round interviews, or if it's a face-to-face. Both require preparation, okay? If it's a video call, please make sure that your camera works and that you've got a good internet connection and that you aren't in a noisy environment where someone's going to disturb you. I get, if you're working from home, if you've got kids, if you've got a dog, an Amazon guy knocks on the door and the dog goes mad, that's unexpected and a bit of a pain, and maybe you can make a bit of a joke of it in the interview. But I'm talking more from a tech level, just do a trial run with a friend or a colleague, someone that can help check that everything's working properly before the call. If you are in a formal interview process, then of course, make sure you're dressed accordingly. If it's on Teams or a video call, then of course, you can wear your pajamas on your bottom half, but do still make sure you're wearing smart business wear, that's going to be visible to the viewer. Do maintain eye contact as well, because you're talking to camera, but you still want to be looking at the person and giving them your full attention. Do make sure you arrive a little bit early. Again, some of this stuff sounds really obvious, but you'll be amazed how many people, even today, slip up on some of these basics. Okay. 1 or 2 minutes if it's a video call, just to kind of make sure you're in the lounge and in the breakout room on the video call, and that you're ready to go as soon as they start the call. Okay. And finally, and most importantly, it is inexcusable for you to have not done some research on the company. Everyone's got one of these before the interview. You have no idea what questions they're going to ask you. And if one of those questions is, so what do you know about us? And you're sat there going, oh, damn, I didn't have time to do any research. I'm sorry, that's not going to cut it. Okay, everybody has some time at some point to have sat 5-minute skim on a company's website, on their About Us page or their brief history page or their news page or even their home page will give you enough information about what they do to be able to give them a 30-second explanation of what you know about the company. You don't need to go into War and Peace. You don't need to go into the company's 100-year history and who founded them and what their share price is or anything like that. It could be something like, look, I know you're an innovative engineering company that manufacture wind turbines. Looks like you've been going for around 20 years. Looking on LinkedIn, it looks like you've got about 500 employees. And I noticed on your news page, you won an industry award back in April. So it sounds like things are going great guns. That's enough. This is not deep. You're not writing a dissertation about these guys. You're just showing that you've bothered to at least take on the headline information. Okay. If you don't do that, then yeah, that again, that's a basic. So please research, and ideally come up with 1 or 2 questions about the company that you would like to know. Why is that? Well, it shows you give a monkeys. It shows you're engaged and it shows you're interested. And ultimately, if they're going to engage with you, they're going to want to engage with someone that's shown some interest and at least isn't just going through the motions. So it could be something like, what are the plans for the business next year? What markets are you looking at going into? Or how have you found the last 12 months in the economy? How has that affected the business? Again, none of this is particularly deep, but it just shows some interest and some engagement. Okay. Right. We mentioned LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn. Okay. As it says, there's over 1 billion users on LinkedIn. It's the biggest platform for business to business networking and job connections in the world. So if you're not on it, you're missing a huge chunk of potential there for your next job role. As it says on the slide, it's often the first place that someone like me will look when we're checking you out or cross-checking your CV against your profiles. Do make sure that both match. Make sure that your profile looks nice and you've got a good recent headshot. No catfishing, please. Try and make sure it's within the last few years. And then, yeah, again, present yourself, a good profile about you. Try, if possible, to get a few of your ex-colleagues or friends to do testimonials about you. And again, anything new or up to date, pop on your LinkedIn profile. If you're out of work, it's a good idea to reach out to connections on LinkedIn or make new connections of people that are in your industry to, ask them some advice, or just say, look, I'm in the job market. I'm finding that I'm not getting many applications. Is there any words of advice you'd give me? Anything I could put on my profile to help? You just never know what these comments or how these conversations or what they might lead to. So you can be quite proactive on LinkedIn. And of course, lots of companies advertise on LinkedIn. Certainly there are lots of businesses that don't use recruitment agencies, that have their own internal talent teams that do all the recruitment, that will use LinkedIn as a primary platform. So again, you can change your settings to show you're open to work. You don't need to change your profile picture to put the green banner on. You can do it anonymously in the background. So there's a secret setting whereby if you're in work, you can set your open to work setting so that only recruiters can see you, but your current employer can't. Okay, so that's really important. It's a bit like sending a flare gun, shooting a flare up in the sky and telling recruiters that you're available, but keeping it under wraps from your current employer. And a few other tips here before we wrap up. Do get used to using video platforms. So if you're fairly new to interviewing and it's been a few years, a lot of businesses use this now for first interviews. So do some test runs with a friend just to make sure you're completely comfortable. As I said earlier, contact recruiters directly on LinkedIn yourself. As you'll see here on this screenshot, quite often on LinkedIn especially, the name of the actual hiring manager is attached to the job vacancy. So if you then try and connect with that person and just put a line saying, hey, I applied for your job, thought it'd be great to connect, wondered if the vacancy is still live, then guarantee you will be in the top, well, in the 5% of people that would have actually done that. Okay, so even by doing that, you might make yourself stand out a little bit more. And as I said, keep in touch with recruiters that you register with so that you're front of mind. Finally, if we do reach out to you or if you do speak to recruiters, please be prompt in coming back to us, because again, it shows engagement. Obviously, you want us to be prompt when we're coming out to you, so please come back to us as soon as you can. Don't lie on your CV, because we'll probably find you out. We've got fairly finely tuned BS radars. So yeah, probably be able to pick out the truth somewhere. If you do change your mind on a job, one of the things that drives us mad is when candidates ghost us, or when they say, yeah, put me forward for that job. And then we do, and then we get the person an interview, and then guess what? We can't ever get hold of them again. It's absolutely shocking, but it does go on quite a lot. So if you have changed your mind, or you've looked at the company and going, oh, actually, yeah, it's not really floating my boat after all, please tell us. We're then more inclined to actually work with you again, as opposed to if you ghost us, when we'll probably blacklist your profile and you'll never hear from us again. So as I said earlier, it's a two-way street. Help us to help you, and good communication works both ways. Okay. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that was of some use to you. If you do have any questions at all, we're going to open the microphones. So let me just do that a moment, and yeah, then you can feel free to put up your hand. So if you give me just a moment, I am going to certainly try anyway to open the microphones. Where is that setting? If anyone has any questions, by the way, feel free to put up your virtual hand, and we'll come round to you. I'm having a job to actually open the microphone. Sorry, guys, bear with me. This is being a little bit tricky. Frank, I'm going to try and allow. Oh, here we go. Frank, I think you're on mute. Have you got a question?
There we go. Is that working now?
Yes, I can hear you. Fantastic.
Good.
How you doing?
How are you doing? I'm good, thank you. This is very good. Again, it's just setting a benchmark for me for what a lot of stuff I know, but just having it underlined. It's the networking side of things. So it's almost like a simple question. So if I'm checking with you guys, what do I do? Do I think, hi Stuart, hi Dan, how you doing? Is it as simple as that, or is it a case of, because it's as simple as that? Okay, fine. I guess it's just being a relatively shy and introverted person. I find that even that a challenge. So
well, look, there's more than one way of doing it. Okay, I mean, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. I know you're connected with us, or you can drop us an email if the phone isn't your preferred method of communication. Yeah, just get in touch and let us know you're still around, and yeah, it's always good to catch up.
So it's almost like classic sales account management, just checking in with the customers, seeing what's going on, how things have changed. Simple as that.
Exactly that. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, good. I assumed it was, but you never know. There may be a secret thing I've missed there. Thank you. This has been very useful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, any other questions, guys? Okay, well, like I said earlier, this video will be available for you to watch on our YouTube channel later on today. Do check out our other videos on there, because we've got a few based around interview skills, as I mentioned earlier, CV writing, and yeah, we hope that this has given you a few pointers and a little bit more help to find your next job. And yeah, thank you again for watching, and have a good rest of your day.